Hi, welcome. Great, so nice to see everyone here. My name's Rishi Coupland. I'm from the BFI, where I'm Director of Research. I'm very pleased, to welcome you to this very interesting panel that we have today. So we'll be talking about generative AI, and we'll be talking about a whole host of issues and opportunities, and whether it will grow, whether it will make big changes to our sector. I want to talk about the panelists, but I'll start with myself, the least interesting person here. So I'm Director of Research and Innovation at the British Film Institute, which obviously AI has become quite a large part of my work. As a visual description of myself, I'm a somewhat middle-aged, I guess, man of South Asian heritage, wearing a blue top. I'm going to now take you through each panelist in turn, and we will actually have some clips to play as well that kind of takes you a little bit into the world of each panelist. Immediately to my right, I have David. Now, David is the CEO from Genario, which is an AI-powered platform and an AI studio based in France. David, do you want to give a description of yourself and then introduce your clip?
So I have a hat, white, and so I'm a screenwriter. I make some screenplay for Canal+. And a novel too. I'm writing novel, and I discovered artificial intelligence 25 years ago in the Silicon Valley, and I was sure that it's going to change the industry. But I started to make it in 2018 to really create Genario, and that's it.
Do you want to introduce your clip, and then they can play it?
Yeah. You can introduce me the clip.
Next to David, we have Graham from beloFX. Graham is CTO of beloFX, who are one of the UK's leading visual effects studios, and beloFX have operations now in UK, Canada, and India. Graham, do you want to give a visual description of yourself and then cue up your clip?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a middle-aged white guy with a beard and kind of untidy long hair. Oh, and we're going to show a clip, which is just a kind of very short reel of some of the highlights of the visual effects work we've done recently.
Next on panel, we have Kat, and Kat is a writer and showrunner for Metrotone Media, based in London. And Metrotone are a TV and film production company, and you'll see soon that they're doing exciting things with AI, but they existed before the time of AI and have a real focus on creativity. So, Kat, can you give a visual description of yourself and then cue up your clip?
Hi, everybody. I'm a white woman in my late 30s. I have blonde hair, and I'm wearing a minty green top. I also don't have Pedro Pascal or Tom Cruise in my clip. So the clip that I'm going to show you came about because when AI came around, my lovely partner in the company, Charles Creel, who once helped reinvent the Radio 1 space back in the day, persuaded me to start using it. And we had this script that was quite well developed, and we thought, could we make the visuals with AI? And what we ended up doing was, because it took quite a long time before the video engines were up to the task, so we started by making a graphic novel and a music album. And this project is called Rainmaker. It's a music-driven crime thriller, K-pop crime thriller, we call it. And so we started with a graphic novel and then eventually made it a pilot. And then we have just recently updated it as well. So what you'll see is very human written, lots of human involvement, and AI assisted. So you can roll the clip if you want.
Give my umbrella, Ella, Ella, Ella to the rain dogs, for I am a rain dog too. Give my umbrella, Ella, to
Point Doom Trailer Park, Malibu. When I sleep here, I always dream of carnies. Something about the air off the ocean. This is where me and Rainmaker post up.
give my umbrella, Ella, Ella, Ella to the rain dogs, for I am a rain dog too. Give my umbrella, Ella, to give my umbrella, Ella, Ella, Ella to the rain dogs, for I am a rain dog too. Give my umbrella, Ella, to oh, how we dance with the rose of Charlie, her long hair black as a raven. Oh, how we dance and you whisper to me, you'll never be going back home. 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 Give my umbrella, Ella, Ella, Ella to the rain dogs, for I am a rain dog too. Give my umbrella, Ella, Ella. Give my umbrella, Ella, Ella, Ella to the rain dogs, for I am a rain dog too. Give my umbrella, Ella, Ella.
If you didn't catch it, Rainmaker's my avatar. In the metaverse, everyone knows Rainmaker. But no one knows Rain. No one knows Point Doom Trailer Park. And that works just fine for me. Some nights I jam until I can't keep my eyes open. My rain dog stands with me.
Great, thank you. And so our final panelist is Rachel from Daaci, and which is an assistive AI tool. Rachel's based in London, and she's the COO of Daaci. So over to you, Rachel.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's absolutely great to be here. I should say it's an assistive AI music tool, so I'm here from the music side of the conversation. I'm a very early 40s, white woman with brown hair wearing a long dress with red and yellow, and no yellow, orange and pink. We're going to show you a clip that just explains the Daaci system for the generative assistive tool. I should point out that we are not a visual effects company, so please excuse the quality of the image. But I should point out that the music that you'll hear on the clip is written with the assistive AI tool that's Daaci. It's time to break the sound barrier. Daaci is a system built by composers for composers based on compositional intent. Put simply, we understand that composers understand what is needed. Daaci's meta-composition interface provides an accessible way for any composer to express their musical choices so that musical elements and textures may be dynamically composed in real time. Daaci's generative engine uses patented formatum technology to pull these textures together in response to a brief as a composer does. And Daaci's audio rendering combines bespoke cloud-based production environments so that every note sounds stunning. All of this culminates in the magic of Daaci, a single point of input that expresses the principles of composition for anything, anywhere, at any time, allowing composers to respond instantaneously to the growing demands of content creation, personalization, media, business, and entertainment across the globe. Daaci, empowering today's composers for the content of tomorrow.
Great, thank you very much, and some great music as well, actually, across those clips. So my toes been tapping. We're going to get right into asking these very, very interesting panelists some searching questions on generative AI and asking them to look into their crystal balls and look into the future. But just before that, just very briefly, what I want to do is just to really give you a sneak peek of something that's coming up that I think will help frame the discussion. So I don't know if we can, here we go. So as I mentioned, I work at the British Film Institute. We have a special and unique role in the UK, which is to produce really clear evidence to UK policymakers and to people in the screen sector. And since early 2025, we've been working on what we hope will be a very, very wide-ranging and informative report into generative AI in the screen sector. That covers film, TV, video games, and immersive. And that report will be coming out very soon, in a few weeks, but lucky people that you are, you get to see ahead of most people some of the content on it. And this report, what we've tried to do with this report is not get buried in technical detail. We have spoken to a huge number of technical experts and creatives and executives, but we don't go deep into the technical detail. What we surface is what should happen next, what should we do next if we want a thriving screen sector alongside AI. And actually what we've come up with is and I'll just say this might be slightly subject to change, some of the wording as we go through the editing process, but the general direction will be exactly the same in our report. We've come up with a 9-point strategic roadmap that we think if you follow this in the UK, we can have some agency and we'll be able to, as a screen sector, with policymakers, the screen sector industry, independents, executives, all working together, able to have a very productive relationship with AI. And there's 9 points to this. The first 3 points are we're recommending frameworks. We're recommending a rights framework, a carbon framework, and I think most people here realize that there are carbon and sustainability issues with AI. And a responsible AI framework that then is able to look beyond rights. I mean, we totally recognize that copyright is the topic of the day and an important one, but it's important to look beyond that as well. We also think that there's parts, and this is very particular to the UK, shared in common with some other countries, where we need to strengthen the resources that the screen sector has. And part of strengthening it is protecting what has been, in the past, a highly creative and economically valuable sector. And those 3 areas are insight. We need to know more about AI, what's happening beneath the hood. That needs to be freely available, not information that's hidden. We need a skills support structure and strengthening, and we need public transparency as well. The public needs to understand what they're watching, and the panelists have already done a great job of, when they introduce their clips, helping you understand where the human element comes in. But if we don't take the public on that journey, then we're only going to cause confusion in the years to come. And finally, we need a platform for growth. We need a plan for growth. So part of that story is sector adaptation. In the UK, we have a historically very successful digital content production sector, which traverses VFX, it traverses video games. And that we need to really go with those sectors as they adapt. And we'll be talking about that in our talk with our panelists. We need to really take seriously investment and how it happens. I mean, investment is the question that always accompanies any discussion around film that we're here to talk about in Cannes, but it's going to be especially important when we try to look at how we can make a successful relationship with AI. And independent creation, where does the independent voice come in? Does it thrive? What's the future for independent creativity? And that really, I'll come on to it with the panelists, but that frames some of the questions that we'll be tackling with the panelists today. So without further ado, I think we can take this presentation off the screen now, and we can start discussion. So, where shall I start? Well, I think there's a place I probably do need to start because it's a topic that has been caused much discussion in the UK and internationally, and that's copyrights. So, in our report in the BFI, we'll be talking about the importance of frameworks. And there's obviously copyright is a framework that exists, but was set up before we had this kind of very, very transformative technology. So I've got a question for the panelists, and I'll call on some of them to give their individual expertise. My question is, how are you navigating, how are you in your own individual work navigating the right copyrights issues associated with generative AI? And I'll turn first actually to Graham and try and get some insight from you.
So I think for us as a visual effects company, we find ourselves in an interesting position, really, because we're obviously very close to, the IP owners, the film studios, and who are ultimately our clients. But we're also building and using AI technology, to try and be more efficient and provide them with a good service. So we're trying to kind of balance the needs of right holders with the needs of the technology companies who are building these models. So, how are we navigating it? I think we're just trying to be really careful, using it in limited ways, making sure that we get our clients' consent, making sure we keep that dialogue open. I think, when we have those conversations, it's often hard because I think there's not as much understanding of what those different rights issues are as you would hope. I think there's sort of three different issues that always get bundled together. There's the rights of the data that has been used to train these models and whether, it is legal and fair to, scrape all of that data. That's one question. There's the potential of infringing somebody's copyright unknowingly with a generated image or generated video, because you're using a tool, but to generate something, but you don't really know where that's coming from. For example, if you ask most of the image generators to give you an image of a superhero in a robot suit, they will give you Iron Man, not something that looks like Iron Man. So you're generating an image that is instantly violating somebody's copyright. And then the last component is, who actually owns the copyright on a generated image. In the UK, in our copyright law, we have this computer-generated works exception that probably covers it, but in other countries like the US, they don't have that, so there's a big debate going on, and it's being tested in the courts at the moment over, who actually owns that. And so I sort of feel the position we're in at the moment is all of these different areas are currently being tested in the courts, and it will sort of start to settle over the coming years. And in the meantime, we need to be just incredibly careful and make sure that we keep that dialogue going with, with our clients.
Yeah, a real need for education, a real need for keeping a finger on the pulse, and presumably for a while that's going to be a drag on innovation and a source of concern for the industry. So it's really important that we prioritise finding out more about that. David, did you have any insights on how you're navigating copyright issues?
Yeah, I think it's very important to understand that they're trained by when you read a book or you go to a movie, you pay, and the LLM, the big LLM, they didn't pay to be trained on the book, on the movie and stuff. So there is a problem here. And Trump, 2 days ago, he fired the copyright boss in America. So it's clear for him. It's clear for the big tech that they're gonna try to destroy this problem and say, okay, we're not gonna pay the artist. We were trained with the artist and we're gonna pay. So in Genario, we make a big contract with SACD. It's an organism for the right, and it's important that all the industry of AI have to be close to the artist to make some. I think the only thing is transparency. We will not just remuneration, just money back to the artist. That's the only thing we can do. I hope we can try.
Great, thank you. And Rachel, just really want to bring you in here.
Yes, so we're quite active in this in the music space, and we're picking all sorts of fights. But something for us is very crucially important as a music industry, and coming from this from a music industry perspective. It absolutely is. If there should be licensing in place, the music industry is going. There are offerings like we want to put licenses in place. We were one of the companies who went and demonstrated our system to the House of Lords when they were doing their kind of research and report on this. And we're saying there are solutions out there that don't have to scrape. They don't have to steal and be illegal. We in Daaci have showed and demonstrated an ethical framework for attribution, where down to not even the notes, but this sample, the sound that you're using can be attributed, and the people can be paid for contributing to that. Because especially within the music industry, it's very challenging. It's not just about, and I think everyone here would agree, regardless of whether it's the music industry, it's not just about an MP3 or a file that is the output. It's about everything that goes into that. It's the engineers, it's the session musicians, it's the composers, it's the not just the output of a track. It's the people who taught the session musicians the piano when they were 5 years old. And it's a whole industry that is at risk if we don't protect that and if we don't fight for it. But there are solutions, and I think when you're kind of being railroaded by a big technical, well, this is just the way it has to be. It's like, no, there should be transparency. There are solutions that you can show what goes into these things. People should have to opt in, and it should not be an opt-out system. So if you're interested more in the Daaci ethical framework, it's on our website. We've got a white paper that you can read, which lays that out. But we're kind of really going hard on kind of championing this. But I think the big thing is for the innovators to be providing a solution, not just saying, don't do it. So that's what we're trying to do.
Great. I mean, I don't want to say that sounds like fighting talk, but I love the.
Let's go. Let's go.
I love Graham introducing the complexity, David pointing out that there's another added layer of complexity of international law and places in the world where it's I guess more lax, or we can expect it to be more lax. And Rachel saying, well, but there are things we can do.
Can I just make one sort of follow-up point? I think. There does need to be a kind of rights framework, and I totally get the point that, the kind of everything's up for grabs unless you opt out is sort of hard to manage, hard to police, et cetera, especially when there's lots of secondary data sets out there. One thing I would say is that any rights framework needs to try to make sure it accommodates small, innovative companies as well as the bigger companies. I think to go out and do deals for rights is sort of easy if you have a large company with people who can have that that job to go and negotiate with rights holders. But I think it's harder for smaller companies who are trying to innovate, who don't necessarily have the same leverage to go to somebody who has a large portfolio of images, video or audio. So
I would also say just on the writer-director side, that any legal person you speak to now will say we're in uncharted territory, right? But we're trying to combat that, being a small company, by writing everything ourselves, so we know we own the IP. We log and track all of our hours so that it's creative hours spent on it, and that's kind of that's a start to at least use the old frameworks to help you move forward with it.
Great. Noted. I think I'm going to have to expand our report a little bit based on some of the strong statements here. Really, really helpful. I'm going to kind of move on the conversation on a bit here, and I'm going to talk about what the future might involve. Now, I guess when ChatGPT version 3 launched into our public consciousness in 2023, and then as the tools proliferated and developed with, DeepSeek, with Qwen, with Wonder Dynamics, with all these kinds of tools, so many of them are large language models or large diffusion models created very far away from us, and not necessarily with the needs of creators in the screen sector in mind. So thinking about the future, I wonder if I could ask the panelists, what kind of collaborations are needed in the future? We've talked about a foundation of LLM models where it wasn't very collaborative, there was sort of scraping. But what kind of collaborations might be needed in the future to develop tailored AI tools and models? Are we on our own trying to make these models work? Do we have to take whatever they give us, or is there opportunities for us to make something from our own sector ourselves with these AI tools? Can we have some agency? And what does that collaboration look like? So I'm going to turn to Kat first and get your opinion.
Well, I think AI is starting to supercharge the innovation sector in the UK, and that is quite exciting. But we have already talked about the fact that Silicon Valley and big tech has not really asked the permission of anybody to forge ahead with this. So I do think it's important that we have a collaboration between tech and media, and that we have creatives inside of that to go forward. And I would be very happy if the UK actually made something that's sovereign, something that's local to the UK. Because right now, as a maker, I am using US models, I'm using Chinese models, and they're very good, but as you pointed out, the copyright considerations on those are not necessarily going to be great. And I do think that unless we want to be completely subject to Silicon Valley, we are going to have to try to come together. And that does mean government and the creative sector and getting everybody involved. And I think you guys are trying to solve that as well.
And that prompts me to think as well, as seeing your very creative sort of showreel piece that you put up earlier. I mean, there's finding ways to collaborate and help build these tools ourselves in a sovereign way that navigates rights issues. But I also wonder if the perspective of creators can make better tools for creativity. There must be something in that.
It is completely tech dominated, right? At this minute in time, we have even a lot of the companies that are popping up are not necessarily music native. They're tech native, but they're offering a music service, or they're tech native, but they're offering a video and creative sector service, and keeping creatives involved and innovating that space is crucial.
Yeah, right. I can jump in. I think it's absolutely right. So Daaci, I'll just explain briefly the history of it. It's actually, the system is invented by my big brother, Dr. Joe Lyske. He was a media and film composer in the early 2000s, and he designed this system. He's been researching it his whole life, we say, for over 30 years. So it's not a kind of a new system for him and for us as we've been building this. But he built it because he needed it as a composer. He said, I have got 6 hours to turn around, brief after brief after brief. I am composing the same thing over and over and over again. I don't have time. I'm losing out because I can't work fast enough, but I've written that string texture 20 times this week. If I could do that composing and do that creating, but have an AI system that can help me do that for me and get me there faster, I can create more things. So it came from an actual need that he had as a composer, and then he went off and did his PhD in meta creation for film scores, which is the basis of all of this. But within the creative industries, we're creative and we are innovative and we know how to collaborate. We know how to solve problems quickly. We know how to think outside of the box, and we know what's needed. So I think, especially within the music industry, there are very talented people and innovators around. And at Daaci, we call it the orchestra of minds, that everyone in the room, whether you're a musicologist or a research scientist or a coder, you all have an equal voice to get there to solve a problem, but an actual problem, not one that's kind of made up for you. So we're really passionate about keeping that kind of actual need. What do people actually need these tools to do? And let's build those, which is why then actual solutions can come. It doesn't have to be a black box LLM, you can have a glass box, we call it, model where you can see, okay, well, we're going to take all different aspects of AI and music information retrieval to make a system that's actually worth something and some use and that's controllable and can be copyrightable because of the human element that goes into the use of it. So I think another thing, especially from the music tech perspective, is that, Music Tech UK, I'm an advisor for, it's working with the industry, finding out what the actual problems are, but also putting the investment into that. But I think the industry across the whole needs to take a responsibility to be transparent with what they need so that people who are building these tools are building the right things as well. And I think that's a real challenge, especially in the music tech. Is like, you have the majors, you have all the labels, and it can be quite closed doors as to what the problems people are actually facing are. So I think collaboration across the creative industries and across the whole kind of ecosystem is absolutely crucial. The universities, we just did a great thing with BIM Institute of the past year that goes into this attribution framework. We have PhDs at Queen Mary. So it's kind of finding all of these amazing minds that are out there and waiting. And the UK is an incredibly, incredibly talented pool of individuals. We just need to give them investment, we need to give them time, and we need to give them an opportunity to shine, really.
Great, thank you. And David, any thoughts on there in terms of how we collaborate to make tech that's better for us?
Yeah, what Rachel did, it's what she said. I'm totally agree with you. But at the same time, there is in Netflix, in Paramount, in the big company, they're working on AI a lot, and they collaborate with big tech a lot. And Paramount, for example, the boss of Paramount is the son of the guy who made Stargate with Trump, with $500 billion. So these guys are going to work with tools. These guys are going to make some incredible tools. We're going to try to make it and to respect the copyright and all this stuff. But them, they're working on Netflix inside. They don't wait anyone. No, the next strike in Hollywood or everyone, they don't care now. They are prepared. That's the big stuff that we can be afraid. Us, we collaborate, of course, but them too. Yeah. And it's going to be a big year at the end of this year.
I think it's really crucial that they move so fast, and the biggest companies will move very fast in this space. And if we are sitting on the side of good, as it were, to say, well, we needed this to be, there needs to be a glass box, we need to be transparent, we need to build it in a good way. Well, that, nuance is slower. And if you have no nuance and if you're just breaking through, that's fast and it makes a lot of money. And so how to sit between those two, that's very tricky because they will have rushed all the way to the end before we've even thought about it. So it's very important to do it now and not in a year's time.
I think part of it is sort of looking at what the UK is really good at and kind of, pushing that. So from my experience in the visual effects world, I think as the visual effects industry started to grow in the UK, one of the areas where we were strong is we were really agile. We were trying to find smart solutions to problems. And sometimes we would look at our competitors in California and they would have these massively over-engineered, solutions. They would hit it with the biggest possible hammer they could find. And, it worries me a little bit when you hear some of the discussion coming from policymakers where it sort of feels a little bit like government think they need to build a new open AI. And I think what we need to be doing is kind of really looking at these kind of smart, intelligent solutions and how we can foster, really good collaborations between, smaller, more agile tech companies and creative companies to kind of build on our strengths.
Yeah, but the LLM, it's China and America, Europe, UK and France. We lose. We don't have nothing. Nothing is finished for us. Maybe we can make some application a little bit, and just to make some good stuff. But it's finished. Even the sovereignty, UK, France, they try to say, okay, we need our LLM. But even in France, Mistral, it's very complicated. It's finished.
Also, if we don't move fast on it, we have this issue. I mean, anyone who's in the industry knows that for broadcast, you need E&O insurance, right? And right now you can't insure a production made with AI, as it were, or even has AI in it. We haven't agreed the rules on that. And the danger is if the copyright issues just disappear elsewhere and they're just broadcasting anything, and then Europe and the UK are sitting and still debating what are we going to do with it. we are then falling behind, but we have to find something that sits in the middle of, we have to solve that issue without having no barriers.
Great, thank you. And yes, hopefully in our forthcoming report, which is coming out, we'll be able to produce some hopeful, small language models and agile, to use Graham's terminology, and glass box, to use Rachel's. Some examples out there that I think are encouraging in terms of what a country like the UK and David, in your experience, France could benefit from as well. So far the questions have been quite big picture, and our panelists have done a great job of making those understandable and demystifying the big picture questions of AI. I'd like to now just bring it a little bit down to more granular detail and really some questions which I think will make the whole topic more relatable to independent creators, or those of you in the audience who might be running your own companies or working in your own companies, saying, okay, that's the big picture. Somebody needs to sort out these frameworks, but what does it mean for me? And to kick us off with those questions, I want to kind of look at a couple of panelists who've done some work really adapting. And it's worth saying, all of these panelists are highly technically knowledgeable, but all started their careers, of course, working as creatives, and always bring that kind of lens to things. So Graham, I'll kick off with you with this question. Are there any lessons in your kind of personal journey on how to adapt effectively to generative AI?
Absolutely. So I sort of, I started off doing an engineering degree. I actually studied AI back in the dim and distant past before it was actually feasible to use it. But then, as Rishi says, I sort of started off as a creative in the visual effects industry before moving across into tech and kind of technology management. But yeah, I think, visual effects, or the film industry in general, has always been about embracing technology and using it in innovative, creative ways. The film camera, the camera is a piece of technology, and sometimes it's easy to forget that. And so that whole journey has been a constant evolution. We're always looking to take our skills that we have built with, one medium and adapt them and translate them into another medium. And obviously, when with profound change comes disruption, and when the animation industry moved from predominantly being painted, cells of animation to being predominantly computer generated, a lot of 2D animators lost their jobs, and that's regrettable. But a lot of them became really, really successful CG animators, and I think, we're sort of seeing the same thing in a way, in that. People will adapt, and so we will see. Basically, I think the people who can recognize a really, really good image or a really good video and understand the creative merit within it will succeed, whatever the kind of technology backbone is that they're using. And I know I'm going on a bit, but I read a great thing yesterday that in 1982. The Musicians' Union in the UK tried to ban synthesizers.
No way.
And, I think their argument was that a lot of musicians would lose their jobs, but I don't see that that really happened.
Great, thank you. And there's something in what you said about AI, seeing AI as a tool and using it as a tool, but retaining this idea that it's a tool in the service of kind of practice creativity and craft.
But what would you say something very important is that the taste, to knowing it is good, it's beautiful, it's not beautiful. This is going to be the skill, the most important with AI. The creation and the production, AI can produce and create. But the people who know this is good, this is not good, they, with experience, with the taste of beauty, they would have, it would change this. That I think, so why it's the screenwriter are afraid about producers, are afraid about other people, that if you have taste, you don't have to be a writer, but you can write. If you know to recognize what is beautiful or what is good. This is a big change for me inside the industry.
Definitely, thank you, David. Rachel, maybe we could bring you in on this question about your journey of adapting.
Yeah, gosh, how long do we have? I'll keep it brief. Yeah, I was a session singer. I'm a singer, trained classical singer, and a composer as well. I trained at the Royal Academy of Music. So if someone had told me 20 years ago that I was going to be the CEO and then the COO of an AI music company, I probably would have laughed in their faces. But interestingly enough, when it comes down to it, when Joe is inventing this, I'll tell a brief story. It kind of puts it into a context. He would go into a bar 20 years ago, and people say, "What do you do for a living?" He says, "Oh, I'm a film composer." And people go, "Oh, wow, that's amazing. That's really impressive." A couple of years later, he'd go into a bar and he'd say, "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, I'm a film composer." "Oh, yeah, no, me too. And my mate is, and that person is, and that person is." And everyone all of a sudden, it's because they have got access to tools. So he had a real drive to go, all right, where's the craft? Where's the aesthetic judgment in what we're doing? And if I can make tools that will help me, I still need that aesthetic judgment. And when you're working, especially as a media composer, you're always part of someone else's creative vision. It's not just yours. So there's always a place that you have to fit into an ecosystem. It's a director's vision. It's not just something for you. So it's being able to kind of use these tools, but still have that expertise of understanding what truly is being asked of you to create with a brief, etc. And that craft of composition actually can be enhanced. It doesn't matter if people can use tools. It doesn't mean that they're all going to be great craftsmen to craft with these tools. So I think there's got some hope in that. But as a musician as well, I echo what you were saying. We're technologists. We are so used to using technology to be heard. I'm using a microphone right now if I could sing you a song, but I won't. But we record, we want to communicate, we want as many people to experience our music as possible. And so this is another aspect of technology that will allow us to be heard and allow us to compose hopefully more individually for people. But also I think as a creative person, you have to think about what AI means for you. Are you challenged by it? Are you threatened by it? Is it like another peer who's writing faster or better? Are you going to try and get better at your craft because of that? Do you need inspiration from it? Are you having a writer's block and do you need a start point? Do you need teaching? Do you want to learn something for it? Do you want to be able to write in another style? There's so much you can get from these tools. You just need to kind of find your access point as to how you're going to use them and then adapt your creative process as a result of them, like a synthesizer or like a DAW or like anything else. You know, I had to write with pencil and paper when I was a teenager, and it was so frustrating because I had no aesthetic, had no feedback. So I think with any technology, we have to hold it to a high standard, but it is a technology and it is a tool. And also, you can switch it off. So switch it off as well if you just want to go back to your pencil and paper and have a good old think for a while. It's just how you're going to use it in your process, but basically adapt to your process.
Adapt your process, thank you. I want to bring Kat in here, but I'm going to slightly nuance the question, Kat, if that's okay. So very interested in your journey of adaptation, but I also want you to look forward into your crystal ball a little bit. So in the future, are we going to see a world where independent creativity flourishes and becomes more diverse, kind of, as Rachel said, is possible? Or might we see a future with the growth of AI and that kind of machine learning element that actually we see repetition of ideas or already established creatives kind of profiting from it in a way that younger and newer people can't get their foot in the ladder? What's your kind of vision in your crystal ball?
Well, like you said, how long do we have? But there's no doubt that we're in the middle of quite a scary shift. And every talk I'm on recently, you know, there's always someone in the audience going, I'm just really, really worried about my job and how is this going to go forward? And I have to say that my journey with this started a couple of years ago. So I've spent a few years showrunning Dancing with the Stars format in Europe. And we meet at BBC once a year and all the showrunners meet. And I was talking to the others, and we were discussing that, are we going to have a job in 5 to 10 years? Are people even going to be watching linear anymore, these big flagship shows? And in that moment, I thought, I have to put away my own hatred of scrolling and TikTok and the algorithms and go, okay, how can I adapt to the future? And so even though I was quite reluctant when AI came around, my very tech-oriented partner was like, this is going to be a thing. And he's always been at the forefront of tech and creative. And starting to use it has been a revolution. It's gone from, okay, I have to send somebody my script and it would sit on their hard drive for 7 months, or I can send them a 3-minute pilot episode and say, here's the characters, here's the world, are you interested in it? And hopefully that will create commissions that can then give more jobs into the creative sector. So I'm positive for the future in that way. But I will also say, you know, like we've seen with online content and seen with music, I think there's been studies on this, content flattens online. You know, it becomes very generic, it becomes very samey, and generative certainly there's a danger of that. But then you have the thing of you have to have an eye, you still need your old skill sets. You need to be able to direct, you need to be able to have an editor's eye, just pouring out content is not going to make anything that anybody wants to watch. So we still need these old skill sets. But there is going to be a question as well of, okay, say for me as a filmmaker, there's a danger of a race to the bottom where now I can actually, somebody can ask me and say, hey, can I pay you £1,000 or dollars to make me a video? And then I have to be the concept artist, I have to be the director, I have to be the editor, I have to do the post. And because I can now, and I'm not tech native, I will speak for everyone who is not good at tech, but now suddenly with these tools getting easier, I can. But then that's 8 people's job. And so if we are going to do 8 people's job, first of all, we have to charge like 8 people. And we have to be careful that we don't just... Yeah, exactly. But that's the danger, I think, the race to the bottom, and that we have to be very conscious of it as we learn these new skills, as we take contracts, as an ad company hires you to go, hey, you know, now we would spend $1 million on this ad, now we can spend 40 grand, and you can do most of it by yourself. We have to be on the front line to set the standards so that we go into the future with a plan and not just sort of mindlessly following the tech. Yeah.
I love that. We could talk loads more, but I think that might be a point we go to Q&A. But I love the fact that we've kind of come to this round in a circle as well, talking about the importance of valuing the craft, actually. And actually, going back to the BFI strategic framework, I think that public understanding, we need to take the public on a journey with us to understand the kind of human element, where it's been aided and augmented, not to be afraid of that, but to really value that human element. Okay, so this has been an amazing talk. We could go on much longer, but we do need to leave time for audience Q&A. So I think if I can take hands, yeah, I think this lady was maybe first here. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're talking a lot about the connectivity, right, between AI, the media, the creatives, and how we can make it more cohesive, how we can remove this sameness, this generative effect, right, this like uncanny valley feeling when we look at AI, and we know that's not quite normal, that's not quite human, that's not quite relatable, right? So as a theater artist in New York, something that we experience all the time is a black box theater. We create our world. We have this relationship with time, space, one another. There's a kinestheticness to it. And as a theater creative, tech often feels superimposed, right? So we have the live performers, and then we have superimposed a projection screen or superimposed another tech element. But for me, as I see the theater world shifting and losing a lot of its core training and skill sets because we're deferring to technology, because we prefer technology, I would love to hear how you guys think that theater actors, theater artists can collaborate with 2D media creators, right? Because we're always talking about AI as far as film goes. We very rarely talk about how it's going to affect live events, and especially live events that are not necessarily bite-sized, right? Like a play could be 55 minutes to 3 hours. And so for me, it's super important that those live elements continue to have that perspective of depth, time and space, relationship, right? The way that you're 10 feet away from me and that means something different than how close she is, right? And I feel like with AI, there's always that missing.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that I would say that that's true not just of AI, but of linear media generally in comparison to the theatre. You know, we've heard all sorts of stories of actors sort of struggling to act against a green screen. And I think, you know, it's not really necessarily an AI answer, but I think real-time technology can help to bridge that gap. You know, the RSC did an amazing project where they had somebody off stage in a motion capture suit. So they were able to respond maybe you lose, maybe you get a dislocation in space, but you get the time element, so they can actually react to what the actors are doing on stage. I think it's an area, going back to Rishi's collaboration point. We were talking about collaboration between creatives and technology. That's an area I'd love to see some collaboration in, because I think it's really fascinating. And I think how you could almost create a new art form from merging the two is really interesting.
Caters more to the modern day audience, because modern day audiences don't love proscenium stage and having to sit quiet for 2 hours.
Yeah, theater is always great in the innovation space, I think, in taking, okay, how can we take this thing that's scary and unusual, and if it is uncanny, y'all are very good at putting that on the stage and going, okay, well, what if we have an AI actor on this screen next to this thing? And I think asking those questions will work in the theater space. But it's kind of taking your limitation, i.e. the uncanniness, and making it something different, and then having that conversation. So I think useful in that respect.
I might just jump in and say thank you. I have a theatre background as well, so it's always lovely to hear. And it's a super great question. It brings us back to the collaboration question, definitely. And I'll just do a little plug as well. So the BFI is part of a consortium called CoStar in the UK, which looks at the convergent technologies and real-time. And the real-time brings the live performance element. So we're doing R&D in that. We're supporting R&D in that space. One of the key people who drove that project was Sarah Ellis from the Royal Shakespeare Company. So we have that theatre perspective. We work very closely with Production Park in Wakefield in the UK, which works very strongly with live music, so live performance. So yeah, it's great to have profiled the potential of collaboration beyond the screen sector, because it's super important. Thank you. I think this gentleman.
Carl Schoenfeld, Online Screenwriting Academy. I sort of touched down here at the film festival, sort of feeling initially quite optimistic that, 95% will be sort of that level out kind of stuff, sort of the top of the bell curve kind of aesthetic. But maybe sort of 5% we can carve out that could be an equalizer in generative AI that allows sort of new voices to happen, allows people to come to the fore with really fresh imagery and worlds. Whereas now, sort of having seen a few sort of panels and summits, I think there's real danger that it splits into people in Europe getting quite hobbled by regulation, and that there are other countries where there is no regulation that will just move forward a lot faster. So I sort of see that sort of dark cloud arriving, that it makes this very difficult for any fresh work to emerge. So I was wondering, what could the government do? Sort of what, as you're putting out a report, what can be done in order to carve out sort of lab space in generative AI and get it seen as well, in order to have really new voices being enabled by that technology.
Well, yeah, I might grab that one. I think the panel shows that people are adapting and moving and creating with it in a way that's really sympathetic. So I think to a certain extent you can trust in creativity to survive the invention of the synthesizer and profit from it and do things. But we are pushing, obviously trying to present policymakers with actions they can take as well. And so that our kind of 9-stage, read the report, I would say, when it comes out. Hopefully there'll be food for thought and we'll take any feedback on it. But we try to outline 9 ways in which there really needs to be a network of things working together to really help us thrive with AI.
Just a thing about the creation. I start by novel. I write novel, and when you say, okay, an helicopter come to take Sandra, it doesn't cost nothing. It's zero. If you go to the industry of movie, and I write from the novel into the industry of movie, it's heavy. It costs a lot, and so your imagination have to be down on, like, okay, we can't do this. So and sometimes screenwriting is technical to adapting, like 40% of the series and movie, it's adapting book. And now with AI, it's going to be light, and it's going to be good news for creator, for independent creator, because it costs a lot of money, movie. So with AI, it's going to reduce a lot the budget of a movie. So it's good news for independent creator or for artists, because they will free. They make free the imagination. I think just.
Yeah, also, I think, creators who have not traditionally been, I mean, speaking as a woman in the industry, there's not that many female action directors, for example. Now I can make an action sequence and go, here, I'm able to do this, I'm able to have a vision for it. Whereas before, I could have taken my action script and they would have been like, well, you haven't directed action before. And, so it can be an access point, I think. Again, if you have a strong vision and you have, at the bottom of it, the creative skill set needed, it's not going to come out of nowhere. But at least now you can demonstrate your vision more easily.
A golden age. We're going to see a golden age for independent movie during not a long time, but I think something beautiful is going to happen soon. With video AI.
Encouraging notes. I don't know if we got time for just one. My sense, sorry, you're both behind the lights, so I can't perceive properly, but my sense is this person was maybe first there, so I'll go with you.
Thank you so much. One of the things that I haven't heard much spoken about with AI, but one of the things that I think makes it extraordinary is its emergent nature. So for example, with the large language models, we haven't trained them to speak different languages, but they can. They've worked it out. They actually do learn. And when we use things like ChatGPT and we ask it to do something, it actually writes a little program in real time and then does the thing and then tears it down again. So we've got both emergence and a very dynamic approach to creating things. And you've talked a lot about it's only a tool, but I don't talk to my hammer when I'm
I agree, it's not a tool. AI is not a tool. I totally agree.
There's something else going on here that is going to... but we're talking about things like copyright and so on in a very conventional way, as though everything's very static and there's no sort of emergence to it. So I was just wondering whether you'd like to sort of comment on that sort of element to it, because why is AI so sort of important, extraordinary and threatening? Well, I think it's this emergent dynamic nature of it. So it can take my film in English and translate it into any other language. In a little while, they'll be able to do that in real time as well.
That's a big question. So, I mean, I think that's one of the things that's really exciting about it is that it's generating ideas potentially that are not purely part of its training data. I guess that's what you're getting at with that idea of emergence. And, to me, that's really exciting. And I think one of the problems with filmmaking over the last, or certainly big budget filmmaking over the last however many years, is that, making these movies is so time consuming, so expensive, and so much planning is involved that you lose the accidents that you would get with real physical filmmaking on the day. And it's great because it pays our bills doing big visual effects movies, but at the same time it does give you maybe a drier product. And I think the kind of move towards more real time has been really exciting, because you can start to set things up where we did a film recently where we essentially programmed a game engine to let us drive cars around in the scene, and you get behavior happening. It's not AI at all, it's just purely algorithmic, but you get behavior happening that you didn't plan for and you didn't try to design. And AI is kind of that on steroids. So from that point of view, it's really exciting.
Well, also things are going to change drastically with how we even interact with the internet because of AI, because of chatbots, because of agentic AI that's coming as well. I think GPT is on course to have about 1 billion users by the end of the year. That kind of marketing power is extraordinary. That kind of user power is extraordinary. And if that's, and I think Perplexity AI, if any of you use that chatbot, have already announced that they're going to start marketing in-app to people. So that is going to change how we interact with being online. If you can do everything in one spot, if they eat Google's lunch, if everything sort of feeds into this app. So we have to, for the creative industries, we also have to think about, okay, what does that mean? What does that do to marketing? How does that change how we interact with the whole system? And when agentic AIs are speaking to each other, performing tasks for us. So there's a lot, because it's moving so rapidly, there's a lot of things we as consumers kind of have to go, okay, how am I even going to adapt to that? How's the sector going to adapt to that? So no, it's not just a tool. It's more than that.
And I'll give you the last word, David. David, you'll get a nice privileged last word.
No, just the guy of Google DeepMind. He was talking in Cannes about what he's thinking about this. This is not a tool, and it's going to be the liquid continue. And the personalized, I mean, you're going to have a film for you, and for you, and for you, but it's not, it's the end of the film for everyone. It's going to still film for everyone, but the new AI tool is not a tool, it's a film for you. And this is a big revolution that it's difficult to understand. I'm sorry.
No, that's a brilliant note to add on. We were saying as we prepared that this might end up on a philosophical note, and I feel like we just, with your question, we just started to get there actually. So thank you. It was a really interesting note to end on. So with that, just a few closing comments from me. First of all, what an amazing conversation. I'm glad it's recording because I will be watching the recording back just to try and capture some of the most interesting comments I think I've heard on generative AI in the screen sector. And I've spoken to a lot of people, but something about the chemistry of this panel did reveal some super interesting concepts, ideas, and thoughts. So I really, really genuinely just want to give, please put your hands together and applaud the panel. Thank you. And just a final plug from me, our generative AI report will be coming out in the next few weeks. So if you follow, I think the LinkedIn, BFI LinkedIn channel is a great way to keep in touch with things like that. We're also, we don't stop there. We've got a partnership with Olsberg, who are going to be doing a report into international policies about AI and how those are varying around the world, and international investments that we think will be super revealing. So we don't stop the conversation here. It's going to continue at the BFI. And thank you very much for your attendance and participation.